This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian. I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
Look, some of us are lazy, alright?
If by lazy you mean wrong.
Prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide whether the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because guess what? This film is lit. A thrilling family romp with dinosaurs, ancient civilizations, and problematic love stories. It's Night at the Museum, and this film is lit. Hello and welcome back to This Film is Lit, the podcast where we talk about movies that are based on books. We have finished Harry Potter. We're not going to talk about it for a while. We're in our Christmas-adjacent episodes. One is going to be a Christmas episode, our next one. This one is Christmas-adjacent because the movie takes place during winter.
It snows.
It snows. So, yeah, and also it was a nice short... this is a kid's book, The Night at the Museum. It's a kid's book, so it was nice, easy sort of a vacation for you amidst finals week and all this that is going on. It's a nice, quick read as opposed to the Harry Potter books that we've been churning through for the last several months.
Which were not quick reads.
No, not quick reads.
Not the last ones, anyway.
No, quite long. So it was a nice little reprieve from reading a lot for you. We thought it would be fun, and I had never seen the movie before. So we're going to get into our first segment for our normal series. Again, the Harry Potter episodes were different, which is Let Me Sum Up.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Is there even a summary to be had for this? It's a kid's book.
I mean, yeah, I can give it a couple sentences.
Can I just close my ears and hum?
Yeah, you can just... I don't know if you should hum because the microphone will pick it up.
From the mic.
A recently hired night guard at a museum falls asleep on the job and wakes up to discover that the dinosaur bones are missing. He goes on to find out from the other guards that everything in the museum comes to life at night and stretches their legs. As he searches for the dinosaur bones, he walks throughout the museum, performing different tasks in the different exhibits, and finally finds the dinosaurs playing hide and seek.
All right. I didn't hear any of that. Because we like to keep it the surprises. I'm going to ask her questions about what's in the book and all that sort of stuff. So it's better if I don't hear the summary for the book. Now I'm going to do my movie summary. If you have not seen Night at the Museum, there will be spoilers. Not anything major here, but throughout the episode there will be spoilers. So you've been warned. Larry, played by Ben Stiller, is a divorced father who needs to find a sustainable job in order to provide stability for his son. A temp agency sends him to the Museum of Natural History for a night guard position. Upon arriving, he's giving a very brief orientation by the old guards who are being forced to retire. During his first night, he quickly realizes the museum has a secret. The exhibits all come to life every night. These living exhibits require no small amount of work to keep them from destroying the museum and themselves. Larry considers quitting, but decides to stick something out for the first time in his life to prove to himself, his son, and Teddy Roosevelt that he's a man of character.
Yeah, that about hits it.
So that's the movie, basically. We're going to get into... Wait, we don't have a Guess Who, because it's a kid.
No.
It's a picture book. So no Guess Who.
I could try to do some side-by-sides again, but they wouldn't be very exciting.
Yeah. So normally we would do Guess Who as our first segment, where Katie would read a character description from the book, and then I would guess which character from the movie that is. Obviously, as a picture book, that's not quite so easy to do. And we obviously didn't do it for the Harry Potter series because we had a whole different format. But that would normally be our first segment, so let's get into our actual first segment. Was that in the book?
Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone.
The what?
Honestly, don't you two read?
Was that in the book? This is where I, the movie watcher, takes notes during the movie and asks Katie whether or not that thing is from the book or something they created for the film. Usually this is pretty interesting. A lot of times with these kids' books, almost everything is manufactured for the film other than the general idea. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling a lot of these won't be in the book, but we're going to see. We're going to see if everything was added for the film or not. First one. Any of Ben Stiller's story, the Larry story?
No.
Okay.
The story does center around a recently hired night guard.
Okay.
And his name is Larry.
Okay.
But he doesn't have any backstory.
There's no
to
story
speak
with his
of.
kid or his ex-wife and any of that sort of thing.
Nope.
Okay. That's kind of what I figured. That's felt very obvious to me that was all drama added for the film, and that the story was going to be a very simple night guard, maybe even new night guard at a museum. Everything comes to life, deal with it.
Pretty much.
That's kind of what I figured. Okay. The 3 old night guards, the guys who teach him the ropes, are they like the older guards who teach the new guy the ropes?
There are other guards in the story. There are quite a lot more guards than there are in the movie. But they don't have names or the same roles that the 3 old guards do in the movie.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there a giant walking T-Rex skeleton?
Yes, there is.
Does it like to play fetch?
No, not fetch.
Okay. What does it like to do something else specific or
it plays hide and seek.
Oh, it plays hide and seek. I think fetch is a good change. We'll talk about it, but fetch makes sense because it's like a big dog. So not Dexter, whatever the Rex. Just call him Rex, I think, which makes sense. Was there an instruction manual for the guard about the different things to do, how to take care of the museum?
No, there's not.
No instruction manual. Again, that felt very obviously like an added thing to me, but I wasn't sure, so I figured I'd check. Is there an adorable evil monkey?
There are a couple pictures of monkeys, but there's not a monkey character.
There's not a monkey that torments Larry?
No.
Okay.
He doesn't steal his keys or anything.
Steal his keys or bite him or slap him.
Or pee on him.
Have an extended slap fight.
Yeah, no.
That
not
was
in
interesting. Okay. Is there a Gulliver's Travels ripoff
where
the Lilliputians tie Ben Stiller, not Lilliputians, but in the diorama room?
Yeah, the little miniatures.
The little miniature cowboy and the railway, it's like the Western Expansion railway scene. They tie Ben Stiller down with ropes, and it's very clearly Gulliver's Travels with the Lilliputians. But so they added that just for the movie, very clearly drawing from Gulliver's Travels. Okay, not in the book. Teddy Roosevelt.
No.
There's no Teddy Roosevelt in the
Teddy
book.
Roosevelt.
That's such a kind of an important character in the movie.
I know.
It's like a main character.
There are actually very few human museum exhibits.
I had a feeling.
In the book. He does meet Lewis and Clark.
Oh, okay.
In the book. But it's mostly dinosaurs and animals.
Yeah, well, it is the Museum of Natural History, which, they generally include anthropology within that, but it's, a lot more animals and stuff makes sense.
Yeah.
Do we get a reason why all the things come to life in the book? Because in the movie, we find out that the reason all of the creatures, all of the exhibits come to life is that in the 30s or 50s, I think.
The 50s, I think.
A golden tablet of Akhmun-Ra came to the museum, and that is what brings the exhibits to life. It has some sort of spell on it. Do we get any of that in the book?
No. There's no real reason given. One of the guards says that the animals like to stretch their legs at night.
That's not a reason at all. That's just like a thing.
It's just like a silly kid's book thing.
And that's what here's the thing. That's what I would have expected. Yeah. I honestly would have thought that the book wouldn't feel the need to explain why the exhibits come to life. They just do because it's a kid's book. Yeah, that's kind of kid's book territory, right? Not really explaining the magical elements. No, it doesn't need a back, or not even a backstory, but it doesn't need an explanation. It's just little kids don't care about the mechanics of it. No, it's for us dumb adults. Do the exhibits, if they escape the museum and get out, is there any repercussions if they're still outside at Well, I guess I could start with this. Do they only come to life at night? I assume
Yes.
because it's called the Night at the Museum.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's the case. Okay. If they get outside the museum, is there any issue potentially?
Nothing mentioned.
Okay,
no.
because in the movie they turn to dust
Right.
if they're outside when sun rises, which again is for stakes of. And his whole thing is in the movie. The whole sort of point is that Ben Stiller has to make sure everything stays inside the museum, or else it'll get destroyed basically. All right, so no repercussions if things get out of the museum, at least not that we're aware of, because that's not really the point. Again, I can kind of imagine it's mostly like him just walking around interacting with things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay. A final one for was that in the book? I know the answer to this one. In the movie, the big sort of plot is that the old guards that are being forced to retire are want to steal the amulet, or not amulet, the tablet, because it along with bringing all the exhibits to life, it also basically like brings youthful vigor to the security guards, and so they're like, we want that because we're old and we want to keep being able to do backflips or whatever.
Probably more than a little sour about getting let go.
And also, but it's not really funny because it's not touched on as much in the movie as I thought it would be about like them being upset that they're like basically just being forced to retire because of like budget cuts, essentially. But so they have this big not elaborate, but they have this. They're gonna steal the tablet. The tablet's not in the book, so I guess I'll rephrase this now that I've learned more about the book. Is there any sort of drama or plot? Like, does anything happen at the end? Is there a climax of like, oh, this thing's happening, gotta do something? Like, the guards are you know what I mean? Is anything like that? No.
There is this kind of weird bit where there's like a diamond mine under the museum that the guards take turns mining in all night.
What?
But it's never explained or expanded on, so
what?
I don't really know what that's about.
There's a diamond mine in
I'll
the...
show you.
Yeah, show me this page.
Look at that.
Okay, I'm going to read it. But Larry did find another big bone. The guards in the park suggested... There are a lot of guards, holy Jesus. That he try the mine below the Hall of Gems and Minerals. And of course, Larry couldn't refuse to bring a snack to the guards working there. And that's all that it talks about them.
Yeah.
And the picture is literally them mining diamonds and gold and sapphires from underneath the museum?
Yeah.
And bringing it on carts somewhere?
Yeah.
I'm very confused by this. And where this fits into the Museum of Natural History.
There is something afoot. I think the guards are...
I feel like that's actually a pretty... Well, I guess we'll talk about it, but that's a pretty interesting idea that this probably played into the whole guards taking treasures
that's
from
where
the museum.
They got the idea.
Or something, because it is this weird, like...
It's just
when
random.
you look at the picture, it could just be guards stealing gold and diamonds from underneath. Like, not even stealing, but like doing some weird, like on the side, like DL thing that like only the guards know about this mine down there.
Their side hustle.
Because it says try the mine below the Hall of Gems and Minerals.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say like it's part of the museum or anything.
Yeah, it doesn't say that it's like an exhibit.
Yeah, it's just like there's this mine down below the exhibit. Like the exhibit is the Hall of Gems and Minerals. And I guess the idea is that they take these and bring them up. Now, hold on, but there is a sign here that says mine closed. Mine, like up in what I would assume is the exhibit. So maybe they do take people down into the mine. But either way, they're taking way more gems. Once you have the gems and gold up in the exhibit, you don't need to keep bringing more and more gold and gems up to the exhibit.
That's true.
So they're just clearly taking this and fencing this.
Skimming the top.
Yeah. See, that's an interesting idea. I wish that would show up in the sequel. They find out like some more guard, like he finds out like the day guards or something like have this racket going on where they're spending then coming in at night and like mining all the gold and diamonds out from under the Museum of Natural History and selling it for themselves. Interesting. Well, okay, so no old man heist in the movie. Because that's the whole thing.
I will post a picture of that on social media.
Yeah, we'll post that page. It's a very interesting and seems kind of weird compared to everything else that's going on from what it would gather from the book. So
yeah, it's just tucked in because everything else is him going to different exhibits
and stuff,
and like interacting with what's there and doing like different tasks.
Right.
And then there's just there's a mine under the museum.
Yeah.
And now we're leaving the mine.
All right. Okay, cool. Moving on. All right. So yeah, pretty much what I expected. Nothing was from that. I mean, again, it's the general idea was what the book is. And there's probably some other little specific things here and there that made it from book to film probably that I didn't pick up on or, ask specifically about. But it is mostly fabricated for the film around the idea of the book. So that's it for what's that in the book. We do not have a Lost in adaptation this week because, again, I didn't have anything confusing. Like, the only one I was going to have was I didn't know if the movie, I had it written down because I didn't know if the movie was going to address it about how the things came to life. Yeah. And if maybe that was in the book. But of course, the movie had way more information about, actually had machinations for how that happened as opposed to the book. So.
Like you alluded to earlier, us crusty old adults need an explanation for that.
Yeah, we can't just
don't.
And little kids just don't care. It's a book for looking at animals walking around and whatnot. So, okay. So in that case, we're moving to better in the book.
Yeah, I have 2 points here.
Yes. So we're getting into our better segments, which is better in the book, better in the movie, and we're keeping a stayover from the Harry Potter series moving forward because we think it just makes sense, and we added it for Harry Potter, and we're just going to keep it, which is the movie nailed it, which is things that were obviously in the book, but that the movie also did well.
Yes.
Because we never really had a good place for that before. So that
I like having that in between these.
Yeah, because there's obviously some things the movie does better, some things the book does better. Sometimes they both do one thing right. Okay, so better in the book.
You like to read?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
What do you like to read?
Everything.
So first thing, there are more dinosaurs in the book than just the T-Rex.
Yes.
So there are more dinosaur bones. And I'm like, I don't mind just the T-Rex, but
it's the
maybe,
big, coolest one.
Yeah. Like a Triceratops would have been cool too.
Yeah, or like a pterodactyl swooping through would have been sweet, which I think I see on the cover. There's a pterodactyl. A pterosaur of some sort. Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool. I definitely could see a pterodactyl swooping around. And now, again, there are sequels. Right. I wouldn't be surprised if...
Yeah, I think they go to different...
Although, one of them's in the Smithsonian.
In the sequels, which I don't really remember.
Well, because one of them's called Battle for the Smithsonian or something. Like, so they're obviously in the Smithsonian for one of them. I don't know if that's the second or third, but... Right. So, yeah, more dinosaurs. I mean, you'll never argue me out of more dinosaurs than anything, so...
I really think that anything can be improved by adding more dinosaurs. So
I agree. I completely agree.
And
Jeff Goldblum would disagree, but I agree.
The second thing that I have in this segment isn't really a better in the book. It's just something that now rewatching the movie as like an older person that I'm kind of like, I don't know if that pans out.
Right.
And I know that this would destroy the entire premise of the movie, but like... Even with the financial woes that they talk about, I really feel like a museum this size wouldn't have just one night guard.
No.
It seems catastrophically irresponsible.
It does seem crazy to me.
Especially since we know that the solid gold tablet is worth quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
One of the guards says.
Well, and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. To be fair, because I guess most of the stuff probably isn't worth that much money, generally speaking.
There are probably some artifacts. That, like, if you could fence it to the right person.
Yeah, say some weird black market auction or something.
But we know that the tablet is worth a lot of money. But yes, the
tablet, like any of that sort of old treasure stuff for sure would be worth money, and you could probably find a buyer. But yeah, like you're not going to sell stuffed lions, and generally speaking, you're probably not going to make that much money selling that stuff. So, but yeah, I would think you would, because I mean, originally they had 3 night guards that we knew of, and it seems like that's a reasonable number. But you just probably force those guys to retire and then hire 3 young part-time and then not pay them anything.
Yeah.
Because
you would think.
Because when you hired those old night guards, you actually had to pay them a living wage, and then they kept getting raises that, cost of living raises, and now you can just hire some kid and like pay him nothing. So
probably get an intern.
Yeah.
Capitalism.
But yeah, I agree. I thought they're not gonna have one guard. That doesn't really make sense.
But as you could see in the book, there are many.
There's
night
hundreds
guards.
of guards in the book, like just dozens and dozens. Which, to be fair, that may be a little excessive. The number of guards we see in the just flipping through the pages of the books, where they're just everywhere. But yeah, I agree.
I mean, maybe the museum just pays them in gold and diamonds from the mines, so
There you go.
they can have as many as they want.
That's true. So that's it for Better in the Book. Again, the book's too short to have that much more going on. There wasn't any like specific scene you wish you had gotten from. Oh, this is fun. I'm just flipped to a random page. He took the birds for a walk.
Yeah, that's fun.
He has birds tied to strings and is taking them for a walk in the park. That's interesting. That would have been fun to see. Let's do Better in the Movie.
My life has taught me one lesson, Hugo, and not the one I thought it would. Happy endings only happen in the movies.
Okay, so some of my Better in the Movies are like bigger kind of general things. Other ones are little details that I liked.
Yeah.
A big thing, I liked giving Larry a backstory.
Yeah.
You know, he's got his son. He's got kind of his personal history of never having been able to accomplish anything or like having trouble sticking with something. I like that it gives him a reason to want to keep the job despite its many quirks.
Chaos, and how awful it would be. Yeah, it does give him motivation to stick. I did completely buy, because he quits like numerous times.
I mean, I would too. I'd be like, "What the? This?"
He's like straight up quits at least twice, I think, and then but every time kind of comes back or even gets fired and then convinces them to keep him on. And you buy the reason is because of wanting to. There's all the setup with his kid, not telling him about career day because his dad's never really had a job.
Yeah.
Or it's not that he's not had a job, but he's sort of like he comes up with an idea and then or he starts an idea and it doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, he's an idea guy and he can't, he doesn't ever see anything through.
Yeah, he doesn't follow through on any of it.
And then it's not a huge element, but there's a little bit of like tension with like the stepdad who has like a good job.
Right, he's like a day trader.
Yeah.
He's not. He's got some bond trader or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But then, the kid's like looking up to him. So
you totally buy why he wants to stick it out and do this, because he's like, at the end of his line, and just really wants his kid to be proud of him.
I really liked the scene with the T-Rex trying to drink water out of the water fountain.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous because, it obviously makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's just bones, but it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. And I like the specific shot of him taking his claw off of the pedal of the drinking fountain. It's like, it's great. It's pretty good.
I also thought it was a good change to have the T-Rex play fetch like a dog.
Yeah.
It's cute.
Instead of playing hide and seek. Yeah.
I think maybe if they had done multiple dinosaurs, hide and seek would have been cute too.
Yeah.
But with just one, you need a way to have him interact with Larry that's obvious what's going on. Yeah. Yeah. And hide and seek can be cute because it's a giant dinosaur and he could never hide anywhere. Oh, that would have been
adorable. What I mean? Like, it would just be shots of him trying to hide.
Like,
and it's just
standing
like his tail
behind a pillar and his tail and his head.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Yeah, like it could be fun, but it would be a little tough to get across what. I mean, they could have done it because they had that instruction booklet, which is where he kind of gets his bearings at first, where it's like throw the bone, and he figures out he wants to play fetch. You could have done something similar, like with the instructions and that he plays hide and seek or whatever. But the fetch it made sense and it was fun.
The Hall of Miniatures is not in the book. With the dioramas.
Oh, the dioramas.
I thought that was a great addition to the story.
Yeah, it's cool.
And I liked the Gulliver's Travels reference.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it. I was just like very clearly Gulliver's Travels moment here.
There's a scene in the story where Larry goes to the library and he does research to try and figure out how
after his first
keep a
night
lid on everything. He bones up on his history.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. I I think that's a good message
Yeah.
to like, hey, if you've got a problem, you can go do research on it, see what you can find out. Maybe you can figure out how to solve it.
I completely agree. I had this in my general notes of just, I thought it was really neat that the thing, now it ends up kind of blowing up and not working out, but it still kind of works. Like and ultimately when he does, at the very end, come up with some sort of solution, it is because, what the heck is it? What does he do? I don't remember, but there is his research. Oh, the horses.
Yes.
With the carriage.
Yes.
His
and
research
that works out really well for him.
So he does all these things after his first night where he tries to bring fire to the cave. You know, like he does all this research and kind of comes up with all these ideas, and a lot of them don't end up working out. But the research ultimately did matter and did end up working out because he remembers this piece of knowledge about the specific carriage and that these horses stopped because of a specific word or whatever. So I thought it was really a fun idea, and I thought it was a good message that, you got a problem, go read things and learn about them.
Hermione approved.
Yeah, Hermione approves of that.
Can't get away from Harry Potter. One moment that I thought was funny, I had forgotten about it and it made me laugh. He has trouble talking to Sacagawea because she's behind like a thick panel of glass, so they can't hear each other. Yeah. And then later on during the day, he kind of joins a tour group of kids. Yeah. The woman, Rebecca.
Yeah, the docent.
Yes. Is giving the tour. She's talking about her, and Larry asks if she was deaf.
Yeah. Was she hard of hearing?
Was she deaf? And she's just like,
What
are you talking about?
Yeah. And all the kids is kind of looking at him. And he's like, was she hard of hearing? Yeah, because she couldn't hear him behind the glass, and he didn't understand why she couldn't hear him. Yeah. It was a very funny scene when he interrupts the tour. And she walks over. It's like, you need to stop. I don't know what you're doing, but you must stop.
So we mentioned that there's no indication in the book that there are any like repercussions if the museum exhibits are outside when the sun comes up. And of course, in the movie, the repercussions is that they'll just like poof turn to dust.
Yeah.
Which we see.
Yeah, one of the cavemen.
Yeah, one of the cavemen turns to dust and then is immediately cleaned up by a street sweeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like that. I think it's good to have some stakes in this game.
Yeah, especially because, otherwise it's like, well, why doesn't he just let them do whatever? Like, what is it? Like, what does it matter? Yeah, but you got to keep them inside, or else if it all starts getting outside, you'll lose the entire exhibit, which is not ideal, or the entire museum. And
a lot of stuff gets out near the end.
Yeah, a lot of animals and
they
stuff
kind of like hand wave clean that up.
I could not figure out what happened.
He gives
does
the
a
tablet
spell,
to the pharaoh, who does something with it that makes everything come back.
I thought I missed something there of like what happened and why. What did he do to make them all go back to the museum? No, you didn't miss anything.
They just kind of like
he does a spell.
He did a thing, and they all came back to the museum.
I was like, I had glanced over like to like mess with my notes or something, like right after he said here, and he gave him the tablet, and he said something, and it glowed, and then all of a sudden we're just all the animals were going to the museum. I was like, was I looking at my notes for that long? Like, what happened? Why? Because an ancient Egyptian spell does.
He knows how the tablet works.
Well, yeah, but why does that make them go back?
I don't know, man.
All it does is bring them to life. Oh, whatever. Yeah, I didn't really get that, but
like I said, it was a hand wave.
Yeah,
it was like, well, we need everything back now, and we don't really want to stretch our story out trying to chase everything down. So
so we'll just
magic.
Akhman Ra or whatever his name is.
On a similar note, as long as we're talking about adding stakes to the story, making the other guards into the villains.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I didn't see it coming either.
Yeah, it's fun. Really, I thought there were a couple.
Well, when I say I didn't see it coming, I didn't see their motivations and what they were actually going for coming. Now, there's that very clear giveaway early where, because what I thought it was, so they show the one guard stay behind and make a copy of Ben Stiller's key.
Yeah, and that's the most obvious.
Right. And then you also get a cut-in insert shot of somebody, we assume one of the guards, putting some random trinkets from the museum into, like, his apartment. But for me, what I figured it was they didn't want to lose their jobs. Oh. And so they were like, we'll get him fired and then they'll just have to keep us on.
Yeah.
So that was like the initial, like what I thought the whole thing was. I don't know. Because, you know, they just didn't want to be forced out of their job or something. It was kind of what I didn't expect at all. Because there was no indication to me that it made any sense that the tablet like gave them eternal youth. Like that wasn't something that popped into my head of what, you know, that would be a thing that happened. So and then when they said that, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. Yeah, sure. Like, but I wasn't, that kind of took me by surprise. So I wasn't expecting them to want to steal the tablet. I guess I thought they had other kind of nefarious plans, but like sort of benign nefarious plans of like, we just want to keep our jobs.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And actually in the book, the other guards aren't like the bad guys, but you do find out near the end that they didn't tell Larry about it on purpose because they were like playing a prank on him.
Ah, yes.
So, you know, there's a little bit of that comes through.
Yeah, and they're skimming a bunch of golden diamonds off it.
That's true.
Out of the mines.
Embezzling.
Yeah.
I liked that they had a moment of Larry like being able to bring everyone together to save the museum.
Yeah.
It's a nice kind of climactic moment with a good message.
Yeah, generally speaking, yeah.
Movie.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought it was fun. Yeah, he just kind of gives a speech, pulls everybody together, takes the hardest of stances that slavery is bad. I had slight problems with that scene. I don't know. It was all right. It was good.
I do like the scene where Jed and Octavius let the air out of the tires.
Yeah, it's a great scene. It's hilarious. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's super good because it's that great juxtaposition of chaos and drama, and then it pulls to the wide shot and it's the air coming out of the tires.
It's like nothing's happening.
Yeah, it's a good kind of commentary on scope too. Of like, well, it was something, you know, it's that similar thing. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids did that a lot too, where in the world on the micro scale, it's like the sprinkler going off is like a catastrophic event.
Like life and death.
But then it cuts back to the, you know, our scale of the world, and it's just like tick, 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 like a sprinkler going, you know, it's like super boring. But anyway, that's always fun. Yeah. It did remind me a lot in particular of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids when that happened, which is one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. So,
and a big general thing, I liked the wrap up of like everything that happened actually ended up helping the museum.
Yeah.
Like they have this whole climax and all this stuff happens and it seems like it's going to be kind of bad, but then it actually, like the museum is hopping the next day.
Right. It's basically like a viral marketing campaign.
Yeah.
So like with like the dinosaur footprints. I will say my problem with that was that it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
No. I mean, well, let me explain why I think it doesn't make sense. What I mean by that is the thing that doesn't make sense. It makes sense to me that more people would come if, you know, was seeing all this random, because they show the news and there's cave paintings in the subway and there's dinosaur footprints in the park and there's cavemen on the roof of the library, whatever. Like, I get the idea that the news reporting on this and people seeing all that stuff would drum up more interest to go to the museum. Like, sure, like, yeah, it's like an interesting viral marketing campaign. The thing that's weird to me is that Ricky Gervais's character, the director of the museum, calls him into his office. She shows him the news and goes, "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" And I'm like, what? I need the movie to explain to me what Ricky Gervais thinks Ben Stiller did. That's what I want to know. What does Ricky Gervais's character think Ben Stiller did? And why is he fired? Because from our understanding, Ricky Gervais does not know that the exhibits come to life. That's not a thing that he's aware of.
Yeah.
So does he think Ben Stiller alone, like, took all the, like, what is he thinking? I don't understand what that scene's supposed to portray that he's being fired for. For bringing the Ricky Gervais think he, like, went and sprayed. Like, I don't get it. I don't get what he's supposed to have done. And like, it's just very confusing to me why he's in trouble. Because it's not even that the museum was wrecked. Mm-hmm. It's that all of these things happened out in the world. And I'm like, but that's not...
I mean, maybe the idea is we're supposed to think that Ricky Gervais thinks that, like, he let other people in, that, like, had a fun party with all the stuff and, like, took it outside and played with it.
I guess. That's, or, like, people, yeah.
I mean, that's the most reasonable explanation.
But here's the thing that's crazy to me. All of the exhibits are back in their normal...
Yeah, it all came back.
It's all in the museum where it should be. So, and I don't know. It was very confusing to me.
I mean, you still wouldn't want your night guard doing that.
Right. I get that. I guess my point is, so even buying that explanation that he thinks he, like, let people come in and party and take it around the city and, like, fucking make dinosaur... I was assuming he thinks that he, like, they let people take stuff out of the museum. That then begs the question, how does he... So he thinks that happened, but that also all those people brought everything back and put it all back together exactly right in all the exhibits?
Maybe he's just not that smart.
I don't know. Like, that was the one part of the movie that had... I'm like... And I'm not trying to, like, plot hole the movie. I'm just like... Wait, what is... Because the movie was so unclear to me about what he thought Ben Stiller did. And now... especially because he shows all the new things. If he had been like came in and because we know that at the end of that there was all that trash everywhere still, like,
yeah,
and it was like the inside was wrecked. If that was the thing, if he came in and was like if he walked in the morning and all that trash is everywhere and Ben Stiller's standing there, like right after Ben Stiller's looking down and starts picking up some trash, Ricky Gervais walks in, looks at him and goes, "You got anything to explain yourself?" And he goes, "No." And then he goes, "All right, you're like that,"
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But then it doesn't make sense for the little twist where everybody shows up and he's like, "Well, you get to keep your job." Then I just think that end conceit doesn't add up. Like that end little moment of like, because then he lets him keep his job because all these people came, which means the reason he fired him was because of all the stuff out in the world, not because there was like trash everywhere in the museum. You know what I mean? Because if the reason he was fired was for all the trash and stuff, that doesn't change by having more people.
That's true.
Be at your museum.
That the fact that he
the end of this movie literally makes no sense. That part is bad. I was just so confused at what happened at the end. I didn't get it. But yeah, it is a nice little moment where he got more people to the museum. And that was something I don't think I mentioned in the prequel episode, is that the Museum of Natural History saw like a 20% increase in foot traffic,
Good
like the
them.
weekend after this movie came out or something like that. So, is that it for better in the movie? All right. So then the movie nailed it?
Yeah, I have one
thing for the movie nailed it. Perfect.
Nailed it.
This is a scene in the book and it's a scene in the movie, and it translates almost exactly. And that is Larry falling asleep on the job and then waking up to see that the T-Rex is gone.
Oh, yeah, that's a fun moment in the movie where he just wakes up and like he's walking past the T-Rex plinth and then stops and turns around and it's like, wait a second. There you go.
There he
When
is.
Larry woke up, he couldn't believe his eyes. The dinosaur skeleton had disappeared. All that was left was a single bone. Why was a single bone left?
It's like a clue, and he finds bones throughout the museum.
Like they're falling off it or something?
While he's like searching for them.
Gotcha. Well, there you go. And see, I think that also probably that single bone thing might have been where they kind of drew the inspiration from for the fetch thing, where he gets the one bone
with his own rib.
With his own rib, yeah, which is weird but fun. All right, so the movie nailed the reveal of the dinosaur being gone. Then we just have some general discussion, right? And then we're gonna get to the
final verdict.
Final verdict. Yeah. That's it. So let's do some general stuff.
Paul Rudd is in this movie.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I had forgotten Paul Rudd was in this movie.
He's in it for 2 scenes, I think.
Paul Rudd, just the best at playing a tool.
Yeah. Yeah, in that scene where he's first introduced, he walks out with all the shit on his belt.
Yeah, he's got like three cell phones strapped to his belt.
And he's playing Bobby Newport, basically. He's like kind of an idiot, kind of a tool, but also slightly well-meaning. Because there's also the scene later with him in this movie where he brings Nick, the kid, Ben Stiller's kid, to the museum. And actually says, like, is actually being nice. Like, he's being, like he's reasonably not, cordial. He's not an asshole.
Mean or an asshole.
Yeah, he's not like, see, your dad's a fucking idiot. Or, he's not like that, but he is, like, just a tool.
Yeah,
like,
he's kind of a tool.
Kind of a tool. In the same way Bobby Newport is just kind of a tool, even though he's, like, kind of sweet sometimes.
Yeah.
And, it's basically the same type of character. And Paul Rudd does it better than anybody.
Oh, you know what else I had forgotten about? The creepy faceless Civil War dummies.
Yeah, those are
creepy as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very, very weird.
Like, you gave everything else a face.
Yeah.
But not the Civil War dummies.
My thought might have been that they didn't want... that wouldn't make sense. Yeah, I don't know. They don't. They're just like dummies.
Yeah.
They're kind of creepy. They look cool. So the movie doesn't pronounce the Sacagawea how
right.
you do.
So I did some further research.
Because the movie, the conflict is between Sacagawea and Sacagawea, and you say
right.
Sacagawea.
Now, okay.
Or Sacagawea.
Hold on to your hat.
I'm holding on to my hat.
Because I'm about to
Holy
educate
shit.
you.
I see so many notes here. I did not notice this.
That's because I told you not to read
I know,
them.
and I didn't, but I didn't, yeah.
All right. So I did a little bit of further research, although I'm going to preface this by saying that I am hardly an expert. Mm-hmm. I did not do extensive research.
Not extensive research.
So some of this might not be 100% accurate. Right. Further complicated by the fact that there's not a ton of reliable information out there about her. Okay. So everything that I found, the Wea wasn't even.
So like, that's not even.
That was like everything that I found. That wasn't even a thing. Yeah. So okay. So her name, as we know it, comes from a word that I'm probably going to mispronounce.
Yes.
Hidatse, which is an endangered Siouan language that's related to Crow language.
Okay.
So because the language is endangered and old, and because the sources are old and exclusively text-based, we don't have a good idea of how it would have been pronounced. We do know that it means bird woman.
Huh.
And while that etymology has long been considered pretty indisputable, there is controversy surrounding the correct spelling and the correct pronunciation.
Okay.
So part of that is because a lot of what we know about her comes from Lewis and Clark's journals.
Right.
So it's coming through this filter of white men who spoke English.
Yeah, English white men.
Yeah. And they would have been writing her name down phonetically as they heard it as English speakers. Mm-hmm. And they also spelled it 17 different ways throughout their journals.
That's a fun fact. Yeah. That is actually a fun fact.
Another part of the reason that English speakers kind of struggle with her name is because, unlike our native tongue, Hidatse is a pitch accent language that doesn't have stress. So whereas we want to put stress on specific syllables in a monosyllabic word, her name would have no stressed syllables in it. And I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah, I don't even know how to do that.
It's just not part of our language.
Right.
A similar concept to how like there's no L or R sound in Japanese. Right. So a native speaker of Japanese struggles with those sounds in English a little bit because it's just not part of their native tongue.
Yeah. Or even a reference made in this movie, certain languages having like clicks and like mouth sounds in the vocabulary that's like not remotely something that
it's not remotely even like a thing you're used to doing
like
with
Latin
your mouth or your
languages
tongue.
And that sort of things just don't do.
So what I have here is a little bit of information on 3 common pronunciations and spellings of her name. So Sacagawea,
Okay.
This is the relative spelling and pronunciation that we know from Lewis and Clark's journals.
Okay.
It's also what's used by the U.S. government and by a large number of historical scholars.
All right. Sacagawea. There you go.
Sakakawea. This is more close to what it might have been in the Hidatse language when we account that we know her name meant bird woman.
Right.
Because we have Sakaka meaning bird and then Wea or Wea meaning woman. And this is the one that's most often accepted by specialists.
Okay.
So people who specialize in the study of...
So the difference there being the K versus G.
Right.
In the third syllable. Or second syllable, whatever.
Yes. Sacagawea, and the one that we most recognize.
Yeah, the one the most people were taught in like elementary school and like sort of the normalized.
So here's where it gets really interesting because I did not know this. I did not find this out before we recorded the prequel.
Okay.
This shocked me. This name, variant on her name, is derived from Shoshone, not Hidatse.
Okay.
The argument for using this name is that she was Shoshone, but she was kidnapped by the Hidatse, and then who then sold her to Charbonneau, her French trapper husband.
Right. Yeah.
Husband in quotation marks.
Husband. Giant air quotes around husband there.
Now the argument,
rapist.
Yes,
Speeds use the proper
her slaver
word there.
and rapist. Yes. The argument against any of this is that it might not have been her real name at all. Because when the Hidatse kidnapped her, they may have given her a new name. Her real name might be lost to history.
Well, there you go.
So there's a really fun fact for you, everyone.
That's not a fun fact. That's a sad fact.
It's a really depressing fact.
It's a sad fact. But there you go. That's what that is. You know, what's also really interesting is that none of this was mentioned in the movie when one of the main characters was supposedly doing her PhD work on this person. And she didn't know any of this. But she does correct Sacagawea to Sacagawea, I think, at one point. Or no. Yeah. Sacagawea to Sacagawea.
Yeah.
But never calls him her Sacagawea or Sakakawea.
Yeah.
Never that.
So, right, so like the Wea thing, I literally did not come up in the stuff that I was looking at.
Interesting.
All of the pronunciations had that long E at the end, like the E in fleece.
Sakagawea.
Yeah.
Sakakawea. Okay. Yeah, but the movie didn't,
Yeah.
Which doesn't really surprise me.
But now you've all been educated. You're welcome.
That was fun. That was the most I've learned about that ever. So, which is unfortunate, but
I know, because the only thing you ever learn in school is that she was really cool and she had a baby on her back.
She had a baby and she showed him around of the new world.
And the whole time she was probably like, this is fucking bullshit. This is bullshit. This is bullshit.
Well, there you go. All right. What else you got?
I want to talk a little bit about the fact that they don't let the pharaoh out of the sarcophagus until this movie.
Yeah, that's weird.
Which means that they effectively allowed him to be buried alive every single night for decades.
Decades.
That
is wild.
Dark.
I didn't think about that.
Scary.
Well, that's why he's freaking the fuck out.
I'd freak out too.
That's wild. Yeah. Why didn't they?
I don't know.
They say like he says something in the beginning when he sees the sarcophagus and like it's banging and making noise. He's like, that's the
pharaoh.
The pharaoh, but he doesn't say why they don't let him out, I guess.
I mean, maybe the idea is as simple as mummy equals scary.
Right, and all they can hear is him screaming and banging. And like, that doesn't sound good.
Or maybe we're supposed to surmise that the old guards know that he can use the tablet.
Maybe.
And don't want to let him out because of that. I don't know.
Yeah, or that he'll like take it and do something. Yeah, that could be. That could be.
But also, let's talk about the best plot twist of my young life.
Rami Malek.
Oh my god, I had such a crush on him.
Yeah.
The best thing ever. And the mummy comes out and it's like, you're like, oh, he's gonna be
Just like an
scary
old
and
mummy,
ugly
yeah.
and like all shriveled up. And then it's the cutest boy ever.
He's very pretty. He's a very pretty man. Yeah. No, he's very pretty. And his first movie. So
Yeah.
it was even more of a surprise. You're like, who is this beautiful, beautiful man?
I don't necessarily mind the romantic kind of subplot with Larry and Rebecca.
Oh, yeah. That's not the romantic subplot I had a problem with.
I just want to mention it.
Okay.
I don't mind it, but I did kind of feel like it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
There's already a lot going on in this movie.
They also don't dwell on it very much. But
Yeah, that's true.
It is.
If they had dwelled on it more, it would have been maybe more of an issue, but...
Yeah, I mean, she's not even in. She's in the beginning of the movie and then doesn't show up again until late in Act 3, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she like kind of once in the middle when he tells her about it and she's like, you're crazy. But
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was fine.
Okay. So I want to go back to what we talked about in the prequel.
Which
was
portraying historical
figures.
Yeah. Fictionalizing historical figures.
Fictionalizing historical figures. So I talked a little bit in that episode about Attila the Hun being like easily tricked, impressed by magic, that potentially being problematic. I'm willing to see that there might have been some historical ground to stand on.
That was what made it slightly less to me, is that if it was, I don't even know if that's true. God, who knows? That might be bullshit.
I tried to look it up, and I
But the idea in the movie is that Ben Stiller does the research and finds out that Attila the Hun was very into like mysticism and magic, and like always had like some sort of magician. That's not the right word, but like, some sort of magician around him to like do magic for him, because he was super into it and like blown away by it.
And I had forgotten about that element in the movie. So if that's true, I'm willing to see that there's a little bit of ground there.
Yeah.
However, I do think it's an issue that he's portrayed as being very childlike.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, it is. It is an issue. I think they would do, because they do the same thing with the cavemen. I feel like that's just sort of like the generic, like, out of time period, like, seeing something. I don't want to say it's not problematic, but I think the idea is that it's like more of a like, you're out of removed from sort of the time period and this reality that you would understand, and so you kind of revert to like this like childlike wonder and like.
Right. And it is, I think, difficult to imagine how somebody would literally respond in that case, because we don't have any frame of reference for it.
Right. And also, with it being a comedic kids movie, that's like the easy sort of direction to take that for laughs, is like, who this person from 1,000 years ago is like, what? Yeah. Which, again, who knows how they would act.
And then you had a note about the miniatures and the dioramas.
Oh, I thought that was a little weird, but now it ends up kind of, they go both two ways with it. So I had a note that I thought it was a little interesting, a little problematic, that is it the Incans or now I can't remember shit, and that's shitty already. I think it's the Incans.
I think it was the Incans.
They shoot him with darts and stuff at one point. And so the next night when he comes in, he shuts the door on their display so they can't get out or whatever, because they shot him with arrows the first night. And I'm like, and then but then he comes over to the Romans and the American / it's also a bunch of Chinese immigrant slaves.
Yeah, because it's
it's the railroad. It's
the Transcontinental Railroad.
Transcontinental Railroad. So there's a bunch of
which was built mostly by Chinese
Americans and immigrants. Yeah. And so he's talking to them, but he lets them out. He's like, look, I'm gonna let you guys stay out, even though they also attacked him last night.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a little weird that he locks up sort of the white, or doesn't lock up sort of the white, quote unquote, and again, they're Roman, they're not white, but and the Americans, and it's like, I'm gonna trust you guys to not ruin everything, but locks up the Central or Southern American. I guess
you could make the argument that their weapons seem to work.
True.
Whereas we see Jed try to fire the gun and it doesn't work.
Yeah, and the arrows not only worked, but they also like had some sort of poison that was like numbing his face.
Made his lip numb.
Yeah. So fair. And also, I'll give the movie this, is that it ends up backfiring. Like, he leaves them out and then they just go to war and fucking destroy everything anyway. So he wasn't right to trust them more than anybody else. You know, to the movie's credit in that regard. Still felt a little weird. I was like, all right. But no, all of those are potentially mitigating factors. I don't take that into account. I just thought it was kind of interesting. But it does blow up in his face. So
I did like that they kind of highlighted the similarities between America and the Roman Empire. Yeah. Because there are some similarities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that whole scene is kind of fun where they're both trying to blow through the wall and expand.
We expand or we die.
Yeah, kind of manifest destiny type thing. Yeah, yeah, which obviously,
Did you want to talk about
Teddy Roosevelt? Yeah, that was my last notes that I had because that was interesting, and we talked about it in the prequel a fair amount. Sort of the problems with fictionalizing Teddy Roosevelt because he had a lot of, he had positive issues or traits and negative traits, as every person does. But it becomes much more, there's a lot more to it when it's somebody who has a great sphere of influence in the world. And then when you take a historical figure like that and, like you said, fictionalize them. And then in this instance, they pretty much only chose to kind of talk about his positive traits, being sort of his spirit, like his bravery and his gumption, that sort of thing, sort of like generic, like good traits, and never touch on any of the other stuff. They just sort of whitewash away all that stuff. And then on top of that, it seems like a poor choice to have him be the character that falls in love with Sacagawea, because historically Teddy Roosevelt was not a big fan of Native Americans. Calling them savages at points, from what I had read. I don't know all of the details of it, but I was going through some notes and some information about the movie, and people had said that, mentioned that about it before, that it's a little weird that Teddy Roosevelt's character is the one. And again, now we'll see this, as you mentioned before, that
the movie gets to hand wave it away.
He's a wax figure of Teddy Roosevelt.
And he says that in the movie. He's like, I'm not Teddy Roosevelt. I'm a wax figure.
Right. So they basically but it is still whitewashing in the sense of just getting rid of all of the negative things sort of related to that and just kind of keeping his like good old boy gumption traits.
And regardless of whether or not they get to wave it away like that, that's still what we see as an audience. We still see Teddy Roosevelt. All we see is Teddy Roosevelt, the hero, and the man who loves Native Americans. And that's what makes it even weirder. Or
like
at least one Native American.
At least one. And now, to be fair, you can still be fucking racist and love a person of whatever minority you generally hate. There's a whole other bag of worms with that. I'm just saying that if you're gonna it would be even one thing just to whitewash him and have him be like this generic, like, I'm Teddy Roosevelt, I'm brave, and I will teach you how to be brave too. And then, but not include this subplot where he's like, because that not only just ignores all of his negative traits, it takes one of his known negative traits and pretends that it didn't exist at all. Like that it's like, oh, he likes this Native American. He's really like into her. And again, disregarding the other thing I said about sort of the fetishization versus whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like, just that was like, it felt really gross. And then, but the thing that capped it off to me, and I couldn't decide if the movie was self-aware about this or not. I really don't know. And it could have been, it could have not been. I honestly don't know. Because it's 2006 and it's a little bit before sort of
It's a little bit before this word was used this way.
It's before this word was used this way, and it's also before sort of the woke revolution. Like, it's before people, like, when you watch movies like pre-2008, 2010, or just media in general pre that, it's still where things kind of, there's lots of stuff where you're like, ooh, that's not the best, you know. It's just because we've just learned a lot and grown a lot in the intervening 10 or 15 years. But there was a line where he saves Sacagawea from the cart, from the wagon. He dives and pushes her out of the way, saves her. In the process, he gets run over by the cart. and he doesn't realize this yet, but she says, "You saved me," to him as she's laying there next to him and he's laying there with her. She goes, "You saved me." And Teddy Roosevelt says to her, "You're worth saving." Mm-hmm. Teddy Roosevelt says to the Native American character, "You're worth saving." And then immediately after that, he looks down and sees that the wagon wheel had split him in half.
Yes.
And says, "That's problematic." And I was like, that was it. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. And again, you're probably right that it probably wasn't.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the word was really in use that way.
I don't think it had that connotation yet.
Not yet. Not generally. But it was like, because I was like, what I said when he goes, she's like, "You saved me." And he goes, "You're worth saving." I was like, that's problematic. And he goes, "That's problematic." And I was like, wait a second. What is happening? Like, it felt too on the nose and too perfect not to be self-aware, but I'm also thinking it probably wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, and now I do, like, Tom and Lennon and the two writers of this movie are pretty, like, progressive, like, socially minded people in general. Like, again, they're comedians trying to push the edge for a laugh and that sort of thing. But, like, they're also generally speaking pretty progressive people from what I've understood and I've listened to them on podcasts and that sort of thing. So they may have been going for that. That may have been the joke there. That may have been the point. I'm going to look at it retrospect. Death of the Author. I'm just going to take it and go with it that is a brilliant moment of this film.
Yeah.
And sort of a brilliant moment of meta commentary, whether or not the movie realized it.
And I hope so. And I do like reading it like that because the whole thing is problematic.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that you brought up like fetishization.
Yeah, it's a tough word to say.
No, it is. Because that is what it is.
Yeah.
He doesn't know her.
Doesn't know her.
He's just been like watching her through his binoculars for decades.
Yeah.
Like,
never
creepy,
spoken to her, never
yeah.
nothing about her. Which is, again, that's a sort of its own problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is
problematic
its own
commentary
problematic
on sort of romantic relationships and how they began and who, why you like people, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's tropes. It's kind of outdated, shitty tropes. But yeah, that moment I thought was perfect, whether or not it meant to be. So, time for the final verdict?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Now, are you ready for your sentence?
Sentence? But there must be a verdict first.
Sentence first, verdict afterward.
I'm going to give it to the movie.
Yeah.
The book is cute.
Yeah, it is. It's like, glancing through it.
If you've got a kid, I would recommend going out and getting this book, reading it with your kid. It's adorable.
Yeah.
The art is really cute. It's a fun story. But there's not a whole lot to it.
Not a lot to it, yeah.
I think
this has happened a lot with the kids' books. It's, you're taking a little tiny thing and it's same with short stories even to some extent a lot of times.
This one it's similar to like Where the Wild Things Are, or even way back to when we did The Birds. Yeah. Where they took that central concept of everything at the museum comes to life at night, and then they just like built on it and built on it and built on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what I thought it would be, and that does not surprise me that you prefer, or that you think the movie is slightly better. Again, they're doing different things, but I thought it was a pretty good movie. Again, all of its problematic elements aside, it was funny at times. It was some of the humor was a little
It's dated.
Juvenile and dated, it's like I don't need to watch a man and a monkey slap each other for like 45 straight seconds. Like it was funny like a couple times, and then like it's there are some moments like that where I'm like, all right,
It's 2006.
Okay, it's 2006. It's a little dated, but it's still overall it's pretty funny. It had some good messages here and there, especially with I thought it was very refreshing to some extent that as much of a tool as Paul Rudd's character kind of is, he's not like an asshole. Like I thought that was kind of interesting.
The typical asshole stepfather
who's out to ruin the relationship of the actual father, you know, and whatever.
And even like his ex-wife wasn't like she was totally supportive of him.
Yeah, that whole relationship between all three of them felt very adult and reasonable and was kind of interesting.
And like kind of free of those very tiresome tropes.
Yeah, as many tropes as there were in this movie, that wasn't some of those. There's easy for that to go that direction, and they didn't go that direction. So there's stuff like that I thought was kind of good and fun, and you learn some stuff kind of. If you don't learn anything, at least the movie tells you should learn things.
Yeah.
So that's good.
But now we know how to stop the Pony Express.
Yeah, Dakota.
So,
You just yell Dakota at the horses. I'm going to try that when I go play Red Dead Redemption 2 later. Just going to try yelling Dakota into my microphone and seeing if horse wagons stop. Probably will not. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of This Film Is Lit. Katie, what is our actual Christmas episode in 2 weeks going to be?
Our actual Christmas episode is going to be about a book called In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash.
Yep.
Which was adapted in part into a movie that you might know as A Christmas Story.
It's my favorite Christmas movie, and I did know that this was based on a book, but I had forgotten for a long time. But I was aware I had forgotten, and we had something else planned for Christmas, and then this was randomly on the other night, and you were like, it's based on a book, and I was like, oh, that's right. We should do this. And now the other one we had planned was a good one that people are going to want to hear about. At some point, we'll do it next year. But A Christmas Story, I'm super psyched, because again, it's my favorite Christmas movie. Mm-hmm. For me, I watch it every year. I watch it numerous times a year. Usually, it was the one when the 24 hours was on. I would just sit on at our house when I was a kid. It's my Christmas movie. So I'm super excited to see how it translated. And now I think we'll get into it in the prequel episode, but I think the author of the book was involved in the adaptation, maybe.
He's the narrator.
He narrates it. So he was at least involved in it. Anyways.
And I'm interested too, because I've seen
Gene
the whole
Shepherd,
movie.
right?
Yeah. But I honestly don't know if I've ever seen it like beginning to end in one sit down.
I have a bunch of times, but because it is on one of those movies. It's on, you watch, because it's a lot of, which I'm sure is going to translate from the short story. It's a lot of vignettes, sort of little moments. There's a through line plot in the movie, but there's a lot of little scenes that are, you can just watch 5 minutes of and get that little scene, the mall Santa, it's great for 24 hours.
It makes it really good for a 24-hour marathon.
Yeah, you kick it on, you catch 10 minutes, and it's hilarious. That 10 minutes, and you don't have to see how, what happens. And the plots are kind of secondary to the characters and the vignettes and the moments in it. So, we'll look forward to that in 2 weeks. And next week is our prequel episode where we're going to talk about
using voiceover narrators in movies.
Using voiceover narrators in movies.
Because I feel like there are really specific times when that works.
Yep, and this is one of them.
Yep.
And
if it doesn't work, it really doesn't work.
It does not, and we'll talk about those as well. So the voiceover narrators in movies, or narration in movies, is the prequel topic, along with our preview of A Christmas Story, and then in 2 weeks, we're doing A Christmas Story for Christmas.
Yay.
Until that time, you can rate and review us on all this, on social media platforms, but also on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. I don't know if you can rate and review on Spotify, but we're on Spotify, anywhere you download the podcast. Check us out on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Goodreads. I think that's all of them. Mm-hmm. And until next time,
keep reading books,
keep watching movies, and keep being awesome.